Hey folks, my name's Daniel Kempling. Thanks for letting me inside your device today. I do hope this finds you well. Pretty exciting times. This is January 11th when I recorded this, 2021. The last time I did a series of videos was exactly 4 years ago, just after the inauguration of Donald Trump. So, yeah, may you live in interesting times, eh? But that's not what I want to talk to you about today. I wanted to talk to you about my own journey as a martial artist, as a student of human movement and fitness, as a emergency manager, as a health and safety professional, as a father, and as a dude. One of the things that I have been dealing with is a sense of mourning, to be honest, over these past few years, when by circumstance and geography I found myself as an Aikido teacher without a dojo, without a group of students. It's like being an artist who has no canvas and no paints. So I found myself doing a fair bit of boo-hoo, poor me over this, reflecting on the times were the good times. And oh, so looking forward to that sweet time in the future when once again life would be just as I would prefer it. Yeah, I know better. So what these series of talks that I'm going to do is essentially share with you how I am training without a dojo, how I have found the profound lessons from the arts that I've had the privilege of studying impact my life. I'm kind of a blue collar guy when it comes to life hacks, you might say. So I think you'll find them useful and applicable. Actually, they're only applicable to people that have a human body. So if you're a non-corporeal entity watching this, this may not be relevant for you. I'm going to talk first about something I learned from Iaido, the art of sword drawing, or the solo expression of kenjutsu, Japanese sword work. I was a student of the late Professor T.K. Chiba, a teacher who was completely unimpressed with my martial prowess when I joined his school. I don't think he ever really got on board with that, unfortunately. In doing Iaido, which is solo kata work, it takes some dozens, perhaps hundreds of hours to learn the outline of the choreography. And it's not really a vast body of knowledge. And then you spend the next hundreds, thousands of hours and years and decades polishing that very same set of movements. Now here's the reason I'm bringing this up, and I'm going to digress a little bit. Because right now, in talking to you, I want to impress you. I care desperately what you think of my opinions. People might say otherwise, but they're full of crap. We all care. We all care desperately. We care desperately, I believe, because we're herd animals, and we equate rejection from the herd, from the tribe, from the group with death. It's a mortal fear. It's hardwired right down into our lizard brains here. That's why the fear of public speaking, what I'm doing right now, is one of the greatest phobias in modern society. So when I do public speaking, whether it's right now speaking to my cell phone, to be honest with you, or to a crowd of hundreds, I bring my fear of failure with me. I bring my acknowledgement of my need to impress with me. Over time, I've learned to let my butterflies fly in formation, and they don't really bother me that much anymore. And I tend to stop myself when I catch myself speaking to impress, largely. Anyway, how does this tie into Iaido? Well, in doing these movements, it turns out that it's not a sense of athleticism that brings you to the more refined expressions of the art. It is stripping away all the unnecessary tensions between you and this very simple, expedient, combative action. Easier said than done. Really good Iaido looks plain, simple, unadorned. Chiba Sensei used to joke with me in my early days that I moved like a tin soldier. I was so robotic and in my movements, and I would walk around with a puffed up chest like I was always, waiting for somebody to stick a medal on it. It was an ego trigger he managed to push frequently because it was accurate. And he knew I was probably competitively humble about it as well. Anyway, as the story goes, he didn't recognize my awesomeness in Iaido for the first couple of the 5 years I was with him. It was pretty brutal. Nothing but what I would call massive negative reinforcement as a teaching method. Something happened about 3 years into my training with him. I went through a traumatic life experience. I came through the other side, decided to keep on training, and I also switched from using an iaito, a practice blade, to a katana, a live blade. And my iaito suddenly came alive. It was vivid. I knew what I was trying to do. And the information I needed to deepen my practice became self-evident, and I was able to apply it. For me, I felt I was cooking. I was really cooking. I got some feedback over the next year from my seniors like, "Hey, Daniel, no, man, you're making strides. It's looking good, man." I'm like, "Really? Oh, I'm glad you noticed." Because I was, of course, massively humble about my obvious awesomeness. Oh, I'd say maybe a year into this phase. And at this point, I'm looking for times to practice Iaido on my own outside of when I had to as part of my Kenshusei program, my apprentice training with my teacher. And one night at Iaido class, I remember I was doing Tachiai, Shindo Munenryu. And it was just all clicking. I had never felt better in my life. And I could feel Sensei's eyes on me as he was perched on his cushion at the front of class. For those that know, you know what that feels like. So I could feel his hairy eyeball on me the whole evening, and I knew he had to be appreciating what I was doing, because he hadn't said anything to me about a year. Finally, towards the end of class, he comes up to me with a slight smile on his face, and he says to me, "Daniel, do you remember how I used to say in the early days, how you used to move around like a tin soldier?" "Yes, Sensei, I recall those days well. Yes, I do." "You haven't changed a bit. You're so robotic. You're so self-indulgent. And so on it went. And he found some new negative metaphors and adjectives that he pulled out of his pocket that he'd saved for a rainy occasion. Just slapped me upside my head for the vanity of the expression of what I was doing. He could smell on me my need to impress like it was bad cologne. So what's the punchline for me here? Punchline for me here is authenticity. Authenticity of practice. A certain radical self-honesty I consider a prerequisite for predictably useful results along this path of inquiry. And I'm going to call it, for lack of a better term, a path of inquiry, the great experiment, goodness knows what. One of the things I can say about my late teacher, Professor Chiba, was the example that he gave us of a fierce, personal, intelligent, and authentic inquiry into life. I don't think anybody that knew him could argue that point. There's a lot of other points you might argue about his teaching and character, but that was, to me, exemplary. inspiring. And so, in that spirit, or as Basho once is quoted as saying, I seek not to follow in the footsteps of the wise, but rather seek what they sought. My own approach in passing on this story and this journey is that of a researcher, I guess you might say. Oliver Sacks once wrote a book called An Anthropologist on Mars. I sometimes, in my own mind's eye, fancy myself a researcher on a foreign planet, and just trying to figure out what these bipedal hominids are up to. They seem to have all the props and facility for an effective and potentially joyful life, but dang, not much of it going on. So what's going on? So that's the spirit of this inquiry. And I'm going to tell it to you straight, to the best of my ability. I strive to know the difference in my own speaking between a personal press release and saying what's up. So I'll strive to tell you what's up. And I found in research, it's best to have a plan, it's best to have an approach. And straight up, I view my job as a sensei, can have a lot of interpretations, from the Japanese, teacher being most common. I take on the meaning researcher. And I consider myself at least a journeyman researcher into this marvelous madhouse we call life. And in that spirit, I'd be tickled to share my findings with you. Straight up. Do you think that'd be great? Click like. Click subscribe. Might help us both out. Next time we get together, I'm going to talk about how, I'm getting right down to the nuts and bolts of this, how I structure my inquiry into life. And for that, I'm going to refer to, what my day job is right now, the field of emergency management. And we're going to talk about priorities, problems, and objectives. How to take a chaotic, messy, seemingly untenable situation, which is a major civic incident, and very quickly put together an effective, coherent response for the common good. Sounds like a pretty good definition of what I'm up to in life. I'll see you next time. Until then, take care. Be sharp. Stay strong. All the best.